We are at the Iverson Tree Farm just outside of Belleview, Minnesota. Back in 2019, my wife Melanie and myself purchased the Iverson Tree Farm from Ron Iverson. On the tree farm, we have 72 acres here, and about 52 acres are trees. About half of that is split between Christmas trees and transplant trees. Prior to that, we had been farming and we've had a cow-calf operation basically my entire life. My dad bought his first shorthorn cow-calf pair in 1965, and we've had shorthorn cows on our farm ever since. Also, my wife's family has had shorthorns for multiple generations, so that is how we met. Our kids are ingrained with shorthorns coming from every direction, so shorthorns will always be part of our operation. So we run about 100 cows here through the Minnesota River Valley, and they're all registered shorthorn cows. We've had a focus on low input cows that are grazers. And we do have a bull sale. We market bulls in the fall, and those bulls run on grass all summer and they sell as long yearlings. We are right here in the Minnesota River Valley, and most of our farm ground is within a couple miles of the Minnesota River. And we actually live right on the river. So we've been doing this since we purchased the farm in 2019. We farm just shy of 300 acres of row crops, and we grow generally corn and soybeans, a little bit of wheat, sometimes we'll grow some oats, and we've also done some full season cover crops. But the Iverson Tree Farm has actually been in business. Last year was year 30, so we decided to end up purchasing the farm, and now we do a lot of stuff here on the tree farm. Our main business is tree transplanting. So we specialize in large trees, and as you can see here, we've just moved in this is actually an elm tree, but we specialize in maples, spruce, and pines. And then we also do Christmas trees, so it's a cut your own farm. And then we also have a fall festival, and during that fall festival, we have lots of activities. We spread people out across the 72 acres of the farm. This year we have 2 mazes that are actually cover crop mazes. Generally, they would be corn mazes. But this year we decided to do all cover crops for that. And those cover crops will be harvested. We haven't decided if they'll be chopped or grazed later on in the season, but they will be harvested for feed for cows.
Cody's got about 300 acres of row crop, and he came to the office and wanted to convert over to no-till and cover crops. And so we signed him up for EQIP, got him funded. And Cody also runs a beef operation that he's in the past has gotten some assistance from NRCS for fencing and water and pollinator plantings and no-till and cover crops.
We got into cover crops several years ago. A friend of mine talked me into planting something after the small grains just to extend the grazing season. Now that was probably 15 years ago. Come to find out, the stuff grew great and it was waist high. We fenced it off and we ended up bringing back a whole bunch of cows a little earlier than normal to graze these cover crops. After that, the next year we added some radishes, turnips, and peas to the oats, and we extended our grazing season well into December, and I was sold from then on. So now we try to cover crop 100% of the acres every year, and we also no-till everything as well. And we found that the two work kind of hand in hand. One maybe doesn't work as well without the other in this area. And we've gone through several different changes since then, but that's been the main goal, and trying to improve soil health, improve soil quality. Really worried about future generations on our farm. We've got 3 kids, and we want to make sure that they've got an opportunity to farm, and we want to keep that soil and build on what we're already doing. We really like to get the cows out grazing cover crops, and if we don't have a big enough piece that makes sense to get cows out to, we've worked with a lot of the neighbors in the past to make sure that we do have an opportunity to graze some cover crops. So we started no-tilling in 2015, I would say, and I haven't looked back. And there's been some challenges from time to time, but usually the issue is the fact that we didn't have a cover crop established. In some of our soil, we can have some heavier wet soils that we need to have something growing in the spring to make the no-till work, and that's where the cover crops come into play. I definitely want to see at least a 4-way mix, and I like 8-way mixes better. We always try to have grass, legume, and brassica in the mix, and depending upon what the goal is and what our resource concerns are, every mix looks a little bit different. Sometimes we do have to get pretty simple on that, but we do try, the earlier it is, we try to get very diverse.
So doing reduced tillage or no-till and cover crops mimics more back to what nature wanted the system to be, having a living root in there all the time, not tilling the soil, not disturbing the organisms in the soil, and just presents a better growing condition for the row crop.
Some of the major benefits with cover crops and how they affect soil and the no-till side of things, to me the biggest benefit is actually nutrient cycling. As many people know today, our inputs are sky high and they just keep getting higher. And we have to look at some of the nutrients that are locked in the soil, and diverse cover crop species allow us to unlock that potential and unlock the nutrients that are currently unavailable to our normal cash crops. So that is the biggest one. And then also water infiltration and nutrient holding and not allowing all these nutrients to leave the soil. Each field needs a different type of cover crop, it seems. So if we get into a low wet situation, we really need something that's going to use a lot of moisture. There's cover crops that'll use a tremendous amount of moisture, and there's others that won't use as much. Cover crops do allow us to do some things differently than in a conventional tillage system. So a lot of times we can get out quicker because of the improved soil structure and because of the root mass a lot of the cover crops have. They do allow us to get out into the fields quicker a lot of times than some of the neighbors. That can also have a negative effect from time to time. In the spring, it might not really give us as much of a head start as tilled ground in our area, but I also don't think we need that. So we're never more than a day or two behind. With improved soil structure that we get from the no-till, we oftentimes can get out and do things a little bit quicker. Say you're out planting your corn and you get to the end of the field and it starts raining and you got to get back to the other end, and you got two options: to drive through the field or to drive through the pasture. You're going to open the gate and drive through the pasture every time, and that's because of the improved soil structure. And we can do that through most of our farms. Is we're not going to sink away because of the improved soil structure. So no-till has a lot to do with that. The second we go in and start tilling fields, we're going to lose that structure, and we don't want to go backwards. I can tell you that we wouldn't have been able to get back into farming row crops if it wasn't for no-till and cover crops. Because of the nutrient cycling, we've been able to cut back on specifically P and K usage, and we believe we're going to be able to cut back on some nitrogen usage. And I give a lot of the credit to both the cover crops and the no-till for that. Just the fact that we're saving the money on the tillage, we didn't have to go out and buy the tillage equipment. We've been able to become more profitable on the farming operation because of the no-till and the cover crops. The time savings is huge. If you think all the time that we don't have to be out tilling the fields in the fall and preparing the fields in the spring, we're still across with a planter. We still end up spraying, but we don't have to do near as much work in the field or spend as much time in the field, so we can focus on some other things.
Cover crops provide different benefits. Many times just in row crop, it might be scavenging nutrients, or it might be wind and water erosion. But for Nelsons, it's all that plus providing a food source for their livestock. They can graze the cattle out there in the fall, winter, and spring. So the cover crops provide that grazing opportunity.
The biggest advantage to cover crops on our cattle operation is extending the grazing season. It's really improved our profitability, but bigger than anything, I would say it's actually had a positive effect on our herd health. And by keeping cattle out and grazing as long as possible, and then also having a very diverse diet, those cows have become a lot hardier and just a lot healthier. And no doubt that has to do with their diverse diet from these diverse cover crops. So our vet bills have dramatically decreased since we've started using more adaptive grazing and grazing cover crops in the fall. We do a lot of rotational grazing. I would like to use the term adaptive grazing probably more than rotational. With adaptive grazing, there's times where we're moving cows multiple times throughout the day. There's also times like we get real busy in the fall now when we're transplanting trees and we have our fall festival going on. We'll really slow things down this time of year, and sometimes we're only moving cows once a week, but we definitely do adaptive grazing. That's really extended our grazing season. Our goal is to graze as long as we can. We want to start as early in the spring and graze as late as we can into the winter. And we found that's really affected our profitability in the cow herd. In 2019, we made it through the entire winter without feeding a bale of hay here in central Minnesota. Now that doesn't happen every year, but generally speaking, we want to graze our cows from early May, maybe even into late April for a start date, and we usually will not feed cows till well after the first of the year. We do some direct marketing beef as well. Throughout our fall festival and Christmas season, we've got the market open at the tree farm here, and we do a lot of direct marketing through there. We also sell a lot of quarters, halves, and wholes, and that's been a really good way to market. So this particular year in 2022, we started off the year with a really wet spring. The two fields on the tree farm are very wet and they don't have the greatest drainage. So we decided to prevent plant them, and we ended up planting a cover crop maize out there. The cover crop maize is pretty diverse. We have millet, forage sorghum, and Sudan grass, and also sorghum Sudan growing out there. And there's some spots that are well over my head, other spots that are about waist high on us. So far it's been pretty good. We just got through our first weekend and it's been a hit. We are either planning to graze the cover crop maize after the fall festival is over with, or potentially chop it. We'll see what kind of shape it is in. Irregardless, we do want to feed it back out on that farm. We want to increase biological diversity on these fields, and we know the best way to do that is through the cows. We worked with the NRCS on a fencing project, and we actually fenced the tree farm here. One of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to increase our ability to incorporate livestock onto the tree farm. And the NRCS helped us through the EQIP program to put this fence in. So we fenced the 72 acres here on the tree farm, and we just did the exterior fence, and then we do all temporary interior fences so we can move cattle throughout the trees. And this spring and early summer, we grazed through a lot of the trees on the tree farm, and we moved them fast and rapidly. And we had very good luck with that for the most part. And we would run the fence right down the rows of the trees. We were grazing yearling heifers right in between the rows of the trees, and that worked really well.
The fencing is actually around the tree farm itself, because Cody wanted to be able to graze the grass in between the trees and the open areas on site. So it's a perimeter fencing, 4 strands of high tensile wire to keep the cows in, and in between he moves his perimeter fencing around for grazing.
So you could see when we were grazing this that they would just eat the bottom leaves and go up as high as they could reach.
Yep.
Which we got to cut all these bottom branches off anyways. Actually, they help us when it comes to pruning the trees.
Sure, yeah.
We did a 1 acre pollinator strip through the NRCS. We planted a few rows of maple trees that will not be touched for several years. We were trying to figure out where to put that, and I called Jeff and asked him if it would be okay to put the pollinator strip in between those maple trees, and he thought it was a great idea. We've noticed a positive benefit to having different pollinators. Insects can be a very positive thing to have, and we've had more negative than positive in the past when we were using a lot of pesticides on the farm. So we've wanted to cut back on the pesticide use, and that was a good way for us to do that, was to increase pollinator habitat and to bring in more predatory insects. Even though we didn't see a lot of the flowers come out of that yet, we've also added some other species, and we've added sunflowers and some other things, and we are seeing a lot more insects on the farm, and we have not had to use any insecticide now for 2 years. We've also used EQIP and NRCS on the cover crops. That's worked well as well. It's been great working with the NRCS. We've gotten along really good. We've had several trips out here. It's been excellent, and we've had very little issues. Actually, we've had no issues at all working with the NRCS to this point.
I've been in Renville County now for like 24 years, so known Cody and Melanie both. They've been a joy to work with, very knowledgeable, very wanting to do it right, following our standards and whatnot. They're very cautious. It's nice to see a smaller farmer in the county be able to utilize our programs. So anybody else out there that has got some resource concerns that they would like addressed, or just a plan, feel free to stop by any NRCS office throughout the state and talk to your people there.
So this elm tree, we just moved it in here because we had an open hole, but we are just in the beginning stages of transplanting trees for the fall season. The guys that run our tree spade, they dropped the tree off here, and then they went over and dug the holes at the customer's place, and they're coming back and they're gonna grab this tree along with some of our other trees and take them back over there. On our trees, we generally move 2 to 4 inch caliper shade trees. On our spruce trees, we move a lot of 5 to 20 foot trees. And we do a lot of windrows, windbreaks. So we work with a lot of people both in town and on farms. Any tree on this farm is still capable to be moved, so there's nothing over 20 feet tall. So with these, we can use the same spade that we're using here. It's an 85-inch spade. And we actually go in and we tie the trees. We've got a wrapper that goes around on the front of the skid loader, and then we come in with the 85-inch spade, and that holds about 10,000 pounds of soil. So we can move up to a 20-foot spruce tree as well.
The Nelsons had just sold a tree to a customer, and these guys that come here with the trucks, they're hired to come in and spade the trees out for them, and then they will take them over to the customer's place and plant that. They've already dug the hole over there, so all they do is drop that in the hole.
So the biggest reason we choose to farm like we do is really for our kids and future generations. We want to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that we're holding our soil in place and holding our nutrients in place. We've all driven down the road in the middle of the winter and saw these black ditches, and we know that's not good for the long-term sustainability of farming, and it's not good for future generations if they want to farm. So we want to improve water quality so that we can have a clean river, because we believe that's an important thing to do. And we want to make sure that anything that we're capable of farming, and if we can pass it down through the generations, we want to make sure that they've got something better to start with than we had. So that's the main reason for us. We believe that all farmers want that, but it's important for us to help others understand how to do that.